Can you believe it? Just because she glanced at a painting in the crowd, a regular intern studying art history in Florence was swept into a meticulously planned conspiracy at a multi-million-dollar art auction. She even managed to save the life of the world's most mysterious art collector, Julian Thorne. But do you think that's the whole story? No, that was just the beginning. A betrayal by her mentor, a centuries-old family secret, and a love that blossoms on the edge of a knife are all waiting for her. You'll never guess how this story ends. The dusk in Florence was like a spilled glass of wine, its golden red glow blanketing the Arno River. In an old, private Medici villa on the outskirts of the city, a secret art auction, open only to the world's top billionaires, was quietly underway. Her name was Aria, a poor intern working as an appraisal assistant. Her job was simply to check the catalogs, ensuring the information on the priceless artworks up for auction was correct. Being here was like a fairy tale come true for her. Under the crystal chandeliers, among the elegant and fragrant crowd, every face was one that could appear on the cover of Forbes magazine, and she, in her plain black uniform, could only stand in a corner, like an insignificant statue. Her gaze was involuntarily drawn to a man. He sat alone in the shadows of the front row, his profile as if sculpted by Michelangelo himself, his deep eyes more serene than the most precious nightscape in the Uffizi Gallery. He was Julian Thorne, a legendary figure. No one knew the source of his wealth, only that he never bid, yet any piece of art he desired would, through various means, become his. He was the art world's most feared phantom hand, an art retrieval expert who walked the line between the law and the shadows. Tonight's final auction piece was a long-lost Renaissance painting, Sleeping Venus. The entire hall fell silent as it was slowly brought to the stage. The goddess in the painting had skin like snow and a peaceful expression, her beauty breathtaking. Her mentor and the chief consultant for the auction, Professor Alistair Finch, was moved to tears, but Aria's heart sank. As the professor's most prized student, she possessed a special gift. Her eyes were exceptionally sensitive to the subtle differences in color and brushwork. In the painting before her, a small patch of shadow on Venus's ankle was too new. It didn't belong to the pigments of 500 years ago. It wasn't genuine. Cold sweat instantly drenched her back. This was a trap aimed at Julian Thorne. Subconsciously, she wanted to tell Professor Finch, but he was completely lost in his own world, oblivious to her anxious glances. Her heart pounded. Looking at Julian's proud, lonely back, Aria, in a moment of inexplicable courage, picked up a glass of champagne from a tray and stumbled towards him. "Your drink, sir." She intentionally let her hand tremble, spilling a few drops on his trousers. As he frowned and looked up, she lowered her voice and spoke as quickly as she could. "The painting is fake. It's a trap. Leave now." But he grabbed her wrist. His eyes, deep and bottomless, flashed with astonishment before turning sharp and cold. He stared at her for a long moment, then let go. The auctioneer's gavel fell. Julian had won the painting for 120 million euros. Aria stood frozen, her blood turning to ice. Why didn't he believe her? However, in the next second, things took an unexpected turn. All the villa's exits were suddenly blocked by men in black. The auction's director, Marco Vescovi, announced with a triumphant smile that they would proceed with an on-site verification of funds. Aria understood. This was a hostile takeover. A trap. Just as several burly men approached Julian, he rose elegantly and snapped his fingers. Instantly, the stained glass windows on the second floor shattered, and countless dark figures descended from above, subduing Marco's men in seconds. Julian walked calmly through the chaos and stopped in front of Aria. "Aria," he repeated her name, a meaningful smile playing on his lips. "I'm afraid you won't be going back to your dorm tonight. You're coming with me." And just like that, Aria was imprisoned in Julian's modern fortress on the Florentine hilltop, overlooking the entire city. In the beginning, she was filled with fear, but gradually she discovered that Julian wasn't as cruel as the legends claimed. He gave her the best room and opened up his library, which rivaled that of a national institution. One late night, she found him sitting alone on the terrace, drinking moodily as he gazed at the city lights. On the table before him was a small, damaged painting of a woman with a gentle smile. "My mother," he said, his voice laced with a vulnerable, human quality for the first time. This was her favorite painting, the only thing my father managed to hide and save during the raid. Looking at the cracked paint on the canvas, Arya found herself saying, "Maybe I can try to restore it." The next day, he prepared a top-tier professional restoration studio for her. The restoration work took several weeks. Their interactions grew more personal, moving beyond art history discussions. He would bring her snacks he made himself, and they would sit by the fireplace, sharing stories from their childhoods. Arya told him how she survived lonely nights in an orphanage by drawing, and he told her how he survived in a cold, parentless castle through his devotion to art. Unknowingly, their hearts grew closer. The day the painting's restoration was complete, he looked at his mother's gentle smile, now radiant again, and his eyes reddened. He didn't say thank you. He simply pulled her into a tight embrace, one filled with power and long-suppressed warmth. However, this brief warmth was soon shattered by harsh reality. Julian informed her that he had dealt with Marco, but a more formidable enemy had emerged, the Alighieri group, a family with a centuries-old feud with the Thorns. Their heiress, Isabella, a woman as beautiful as she was venomous, had also set her sights on Julian's collection. At the same time, Arya learned that her senior, Leo, the forger who had created the Sleeping Venus, had been arrested by the police, and the evidence at the scene pointed to Arya as his accomplice. She was now a wanted criminal. "You did this?" Arya stormed into Julian's study, her voice trembling. Julian's back was to her, his voice devoid of any emotion. "It's the safest way. The Alighieris are onto you. By making you disappear from the world, they won't harm you. I'll arrange everything. You won't actually go to prison, so you sacrifice me?" Arya felt her world crumble. "In your eyes, I'm just a pawn you can discard at any time, right?" Instead of an explanation, she saw a code check for a huge sum and a forged identity document. "Take this, leave Italy, and never come back." In that moment, Arya's heart completely died. She tore up the check, her eyes filled with disappointment and resolve as she looked at the man she once thought she could trust. She didn't take his arranged escape route. On a rainy night, with the help of a childhood friend from the orphanage, she vanished from everyone's sight in her own way. 2 years later, Prague. Arya, now living as Anna, worked as a restorer in a small antique shop, leading a quiet, anonymous life. She thought the past was buried forever until 2 unwelcome guests walked into her shop. They were polite, but their eyes held the glint of wolves. They were from the Alighieri group. "Miss Anna, or should we call you Arya?" the leader said with a smile. "Miss Isabella would like you to join her for tea." Just as their vile hands were about to touch her, a black Bentley pulled up silently at the door. The man she swore she'd never see again stepped out. 2 years had made Julian thinner, his gaze deeper. His man swiftly took care of the 2 thugs. "They still found you." Julian's voice was heavy with fatigue and self-blame. "Thanks to you," Arya retorted coldly, her eyes full of distrust. "Come with me, Arya. Only I can protect you now. I don't need your protection." "You do." Julian grabbed her shoulders, losing his composure for the first time. "I pushed you away back then, because Isabella had captured Leo. She threatened me with his life, demanding that I hand you over. I forged the evidence against you, so you would be taken into official custody, out of her sight. But I never imagined you would escape on your own." Arya was stunned, a storm of emotions raging within her. From that day on, a desperate chase across Europe began. Isabella pursued them relentlessly, like a madwoman. In the sewers of Vienna, under the masks of the Venice Carnival, they narrowly escaped death time and time again. In these perilous moments, they were forced to trust each other again, and the old misunderstandings and barriers gradually dissolved in the crucible of life and death. Julian told her that the two families were fighting over more than just art. They were after a secret diary known as the Medici's Heart, which chronicled the crimes of both great houses as they plundered art during wars centuries ago. Finally, behind a fresco in the Doge's palace, they found the ancient diary. However, when Julian opened it, the joy on his face instantly froze. He slowly looked up, his eyes filled with shock and pain. Arya, my family, we were the original thieves. The diary revealed a shocking secret. The Thorn ancestors were the true instigators of the plunder. At that moment, Isabella, with her people, surrounded them in an abandoned ancient vault beneath Venice. Standing beside her was none other than Arya's most respected mentor, Professor Finch. Surprised, my dear student? Professor Finch's face twisted into a sickening smile. You thought I was a victim? No, I was the director of this entire play. It turned out that Professor Finch was a distant relative of the Alighieri family. He had dedicated his life to avenging his family, orchestrating everything, including placing Arya at the auction to use her talents against Julian. Julian, hand over the diary, or your little girlfriend will remain here forever with these artworks. Isabella's gun was pointed at Arya. Julian looked at Arya, his eyes no longer cold and obsessive, but filled with an unprecedented clarity and tenderness. He made a decision that shocked everyone. He didn't hand over the diary. Instead, he took out his phone and with a single tap sent the contents of the diary, the evidence of both families' crimes, to major media outlets worldwide. I have spent my entire life fighting for my family's honor, he said calmly to Isabella. But I now understand that true honor isn't about taking back what doesn't belong to you, but about protecting the one you love. If I can't have her, neither can you. He chose mutual destruction, sacrificing his family's centuries-old legacy to give Arya a chance to live. In the chaos, Arya and Julian stood before the mountain of artworks, speechless. The double betrayal had left them both exhausted. He turned to her and said, earnestly, Arya, I used to live for a false vengeance, but now I want to do something truly meaningful with you. This diary will no longer be a blueprint for revenge, but a map for redemption. Are you willing to be my true partner? The partner he spoke of, she knew, was not just about business. She looked at him. The man who had led her into darkness, revealed the truth to her, and endured betrayal alongside her. She stepped forward and for the first time hugged him on her own accord. I am. 2 years later, by the shores of Lake Geneva, Switzerland, the once great Thorn and Alighieri groups had crumbled in the wake of the massive scandal. Julian gave up all his wealth, and he and Arya opened a small art restoration studio. They no longer retrieved, but returned, using the clues from the diary to quietly send the lost artworks back to their rightful owners. Their home was a white house by the lake. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, falling on her easel. Julian gently hugged her from behind, his hand resting tenderly on her slightly swollen belly. Has the baby been good today? He whispered, his face showing a tenderness she had never seen before. He's been very good, she smiled, turning to kiss him. Maybe he's eager to see the world and watch his amazing father bring all those beautiful paintings home, one by one. In the evenings, he would clumsily tie on an apron and cook her a dinner that wasn't gourmet but was filled with love. They would walk by the lake like any ordinary couple. After surviving so much thrill and betrayal, she had finally found the happiness she wanted. It wasn't the peace of an ivory tower or the comfort of a golden cage, but standing at the edge of the world with a kindred spirit, completing a century-spanning act of redemption together. All right, friends, that's the end of the story. A tale that began with fear, journeyed through betrayal, and ended with love and redemption. I hope this final version of the plot was even more shocking for you. If this story made you feel nervous, moved, or warm, don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, Please don't hesitate to subscribe and share. We'll see you in the next story.